Welcome to The Explainer. You ever feel like you're carrying around this immense weight? Well, today we're going to dive into how a story about two teenagers completely shattered by their parents' divorce can actually give us a blueprint for building some serious emotional resilience. We're going to blend fiction with a really powerful psychological framework.
Okay, let's just kick things off with this quote from one of our main characters, Charlie. Relationships are doomed to fail. Whoa, right? That cynical belief, that's the exact emotional wall we're going to start chipping away at today.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into that emotional baggage. Then we'll introduce this idea of building emotional armor. After that, we'll unpack the tools of resilience, see how you can start changing your inner world, and finally, we'll talk about writing your own ending. All right, let's meet our case studies, Bailey and Charlie. Just two regular teenagers whose worlds get completely flipped upside down when their parents split. This forces them both to come up with some, let's just say, pretty flawed ways of dealing with it all. Okay, so look at how they're coping here. It's fascinating. You've got Bailey on the left, whose anxiety just explodes into this desperate need for control. She has to be first in line, makes these super specific orders. Then on the right, you have Charlie, who just detaches. Sarcasm is his shield. But here's the thing. These aren't just personality quirks. They're symptoms of the exact same pain. At the end of the day, their sharp words, their rigid rules, that's not who they really are. It's just a reflection of the trauma they're lugging around, what one of our sources calls emotional chaos. So, how do you ever put that weight down? So, we've seen the problem pretty clearly. Now, let's get to the solution. We're going to pivot to a framework that's all about forging something called emotional armor. And here's the core idea. Emotional armor. It's not about stuffing your feelings down like Charlie does or letting them run your life like Bailey does. It's about learning to manage your feelings so that whatever chaos is happening on the outside, it doesn't have to cause a collapse on the inside. And this is absolutely crucial to get. Emotional armor isn't about becoming cold or unfeeling. I mean, that's really just Charlie's cynicism in a different package. It's about becoming centered, strong, and, well, unshakable, no matter what life throws at you. Okay, so what does building this armor actually look like? How do you even start? Well, it all begins with two key things: emotional intelligence and really knowing yourself. You know, this right here is exactly where our characters get stuck. They're lacking emotional intelligence. Charlie's trapped in this fog of cynicism. Bailey's in a prison of anxiety. And the key insight here is that they're just reacting to their pain, not actually responding to it with any kind of awareness. And that brings us to maybe the most important tool of all, self-knowledge. The author literally just asks this incredibly blunt question: who are you? To force you to stop and look inward. I mean, really think about these questions for a second. Our source claims that over 90% of us actually struggle to answer them clearly. And this leads to something called a dysfunctional identity, where what we do just doesn't line up with who we are. It makes you think, right? If you don't know who you are, how can you build a life that's really yours? Once you start to get a real handle on who you are, you can start to use some even more profound tools. Tools that can literally reshape your inner world and finally help you break free from all that baggage. The next tool is forgiveness, but maybe not the way you typically think about it. It's not about giving a gift to the person who hurt you. As our source puts it, forgiveness is a command you give yourself to be free. You're letting go of the poison for your own sake. Okay, so contrast that idea of personal freedom with this moment from the story. Bailey asks Charlie if his summer girlfriend knows it's over. His response: she'll find out. That casual cruelty, it shows he's just taking his own unprocessed pain and passing it on to someone else. He's creating another victim. In this is the ultimate goal. This is what emotional armor is for. It's about seeing the chain of pain, maybe the one you inherited, and making a conscious, powerful choice to say, the cycle ends with me. So let's tie all of this together. How do we make this leap from being characters in a story to becoming the authors of our own lives? Well, there's a clear path. This is basically the roadmap. Step 1, you have to acknowledge the pain, just like Bailey and Charlie had to. Step 2, you build your tools, you get that self-awareness. Step 3, you use those tools to change your inner world. That's the forgiveness piece. And finally, step 4, you get to live in freedom. You're no longer just a victim of a victim. This is the journey from chaos to plenitude.
You know, in the end,
Bailey and Charlie's story isn't just a story, it's a mirror. We see our own struggles in them, our own pain, but also our own potential to grow and change.
So I guess the final takeaway is this. Building emotional armor is a choice. It's a choice to stop being a character in a story written by your past and to start being the author of your own future. And that really only leaves one question, the one right there on your screen. What cycle will you end?